Incredible twist. Flight attendant slaps black mom with baby, discover her husband's shocking secret. Sophia's heart raced as she rushed through O'Hare Airport. Baby Nia cradled against her side, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her like a heavy blanket. After another grueling 12-hour night shift at the hospital, where every scream of anguish and plea for help lingered in her mind, she yearned for a moment of tranquility, a brief escape from her relentless world. Flying home to Chicago after a long shift usually felt like a reprieve. But today, she fought through a miasma of anxiety and fatigue that clouded her thoughts. Could she ever feel whole again amidst the chaos? As she approached the gate, the chaotic energy of weary travelers and wailing infants surrounded her. The bustle was deafening, and it gnawed at her nerves. With her past lurking in the shadows of her thoughts, Sophia questioned her ability to manage all of this. Did she even deserve a peaceful flight? She had studied hard, becoming a nurse, but her current life felt like an uphill battle, one full of sleepless nights and endless responsibilities. Sighing, she brushed her fingers through Nia's soft hair. The sight of her baby's peaceful face reminded her that she fought for a reason. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each step toward the boarding gate, Sophia's heart sank further. The line of travelers shuffled forward, and anxiety clawed at her stomach. Seen as a single mother struggling alone, disregarded by society, she felt the weight of judgment in the air. Next to her, a mother with twins juggled bottles while another fidgeted with a screaming child. Their frustrations resonated with her own. Why did no one see the efforts of mothers like her? Why was she still trying to gain approval in a world that so often overlooked her plight? As she stepped onto the plane, Sophia hoped the cramped space would provide solace where she could close her eyes, but the atmosphere was electric with raw emotion. Seats filled with animated conversations and restless passengers intensified her sense of urgency. The moment she secured Nia in her lap, a sharp slap echoed through the cabin. Shock rippled across row upon row of astonished faces. Sophia's heart lurched. She barely processed the reality of the flight attendant's furious eyes as she hurled the action at her, tinged with misunderstanding and resentment. Questions raged through Sophia's mind. Was she a threat? Did she deserve this humiliation? Doubt, anger, and hurt crashed against one another inside her. The expectations of life loomed like a tidal wave, threatening to consume her whole. Why hadn't she been enough? Why was it so exhausting to navigate her everyday reality, fighting for the acknowledgement that mothers of color deserved but rarely received? As her world spun, the onlookers raised their phones, capturing the sensational drama unfolding before them. The harshness of that slap ignited a fire in her. Could Laura, this flight attendant, be battling her own demons? Did the woman whose husband had once mentored Sophia cling to prejudiced notions that obstructed her ability to empathize? The uncertainty gnawed deeper into Sophia, the thoughts spiraling endlessly. Could the unyielding pressure of expectations sway their paths toward understanding, or would their connection burn to ashes in the roar of public scrutiny? An overwhelming decision loomed, accompanied by a sharp realization. Fighting for herself would be paramount, not only for her, but for Nia. Tension reverberated through the airplane cabin as Sophia worked to regain her composure. She felt the stares of strangers still fixated on her, their cell phones capturing her moment of humiliation and pain. What had happened? The slap was not just an attack on her but a shocking reminder of the world's cruel judgments against her. She had to confront the embers of that indignation before they consumed her. Breathing through her panic, she focused on Nia, urging herself to rise above the moment. The baby's wide eyes searched her face, sensing her distress. Sophia's heart twisted, realizing that every time she faltered in her resolve, her daughter would feel it, the implications of her struggle rippling outward. In this, she discovered a hidden fortitude, a fierce desire to shield Nia from the harshness of the world. But how? How could she navigate her own pain while protecting her baby's innocence? The flight attendant's actions echoed in her mind, but Sophia steadied herself, confronting the inner turmoil surging within. She would not allow this transgression to define her narrative. The darkness of judgment was out there, but so was she here, resilient and fighting, squaring her shoulders. She decided not to sink back into the shadows of shame. She professionally supported her colleagues in the hospital, but now she needed to advocate for herself. Sophia glanced toward the flight attendant, who was distracting herself with adjusting the drinks cart. Sophia realized then that the woman wasn't invincible. She too was a product of her experiences. What did Laura see in her? What history did they share that had been lost amidst assumptions and stereotypes? "Excuse me," Sophia called out, her voice steady, slicing through the din of boarding chaos. The flight attendant turned, surprised. A moment of tension swelled the atmosphere, heavy, pregnant with unspoken words and pain. "I'd like to talk about what just happened," Sophia continued, aware of the numerous eyes on them, but commanding her narrative. "You slapped me because I made you feel uncomfortable, but I'm also a person. We have to recognize our stories, even if they conflict." Laura blinked, her eyes widening as her initial shock began to fade. The defiance in Sophia's voice gleamed with strength as she pressed on. "I'm tired of being dismissed. My work as a nurse is to care, but I also need care myself. You don't know my struggles, and today you made them part of your own misunderstanding. Please let us talk." The flight attendant hesitated, private gears clearly turning in her mind. Sophia's vulnerability had shattered the wall, revealing uncertainty, perhaps loaded with guilt. A flicker of realization passed between them, a shared humanity drowned in hurt. Would this be the moment they stepped off the superficial ledge of their reality and bridged the gap between their experiences? Sophia felt her heart race with uncertainty, the stakes immeasurable. What if Laura lashed out again? What if she further shunned the possibility of dialogue? Yet in this moment, she had no choice but to confront. For Nia's sake, for her own redemption, she would not back down. "Let us resolve this," she urged, feeling a surge of hope against the tide of adversity. The flight attendant remained silent, contemplating as passengers jostled around them. Their eyes communicated volumes in those suspended heartbeats, an unspoken query echoing the hallway of fears and experiences they both harbored. But whatever the outcome, one thing was clear. This was just the beginning of their confrontation. Would the discovery of each other's truths spark a new path? Or would they retreat into the safety of their segregated worlds? The challenge loomed larger than the unfolding drama of the flight. Suddenly, the overhead lights dimmed, shifting the focus into a tranquil yet charged atmosphere, demanding answers. Igniting the flight was just possible. Would Sophia and Laura emerge from the turbulence of their collision, or navigate darker skies? The moment of silence stretched out, expanding like a balloon filled with air, poised to burst. Laura's expression shifted, mirroring a softening, the defensiveness in her posture slowly dissipating. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest, not from fear, but from the thrilling uncertainty of what could transpire next. Some spark of recognition sparked in Laura, as if beneath her tough exterior lay a depth of understanding waiting to be ignited. "Okay," Laura finally said, her voice much lower as she stepped closer, the hum of the cabin becoming a muted background. "What do you want to say?" Sophia took a deep breath, conscious of the weight of her next words. "I want you to see me not just the woman you thought I was in that moment, but the person behind it. I'm usually caring for others, and right now I need to do that for myself." Laura nodded, slowly gaining her own composure. "It's hard sometimes to remember that everyone has a story. I shouldn't have reacted like that." Sophia studied her, balancing the candor of her vulnerability with the instinctual urge to shield herself. "Thank you for acknowledging that. I don't want to shy away from discussions that can be uncomfortable. We all suffer in our own way, right?" "That's true," Laura whispered, her eyes dropping momentarily. It's easier to react than to listen." Sophia sensed this shared acknowledgement could be a turning point not just in their unexpected interaction, but for herself. I've spent so long worrying about what others think of me, often dismissing my own feelings as if they didn't matter. It's exhausting. Laura's brow furrowed, her expression now more thoughtful. Have you ever had to deal with those kind of judgments at your job? I mean, as a nurse? The question reverberated through Sophia. It had been a roller coaster of a career since earning her degree. Yes. Every day I see people who undervalue the work we do. They assume we're just there to collect a paycheck. But it's so much more. We pour ourselves into caring for our patients, often sacrificing our own well-being in the process. A faint smile tugged at Laura's lips. Maybe that's something we both can learn from each other. I've worked in customer service for years, and whenever I see an upset customer, I have to remind myself to understand their frustrations rather than just react. The words echoed in Sophia's mind, and as the conversation deepened, she felt an unusual camaraderie with Laura. Both emerged from different backgrounds, yet similar struggles bound them together. The tight grip of anguish and misunderstanding began to loosen, unraveling the tapestry of their hurt. Let us not have this be just another moment. Let it be the beginning, Sophia murmured, infusing both their predicaments with hope. I think it's time we step up for ourselves and what we believe in. For Nia, for our own well-being. Laura's head tilted ever so slightly. The flicker of possibility grew in her eyes. What do you think should happen next? Sophia considered that question, realizing what lay ahead could pave the way to her own growth. I want to make the most of this connection. Maybe we talk more not just to resolve this, but to seek understanding. In a way, managing our personal experiences could help us be better in our roles, both as a mother and a flight attendant. Agreed, Laura replied, her voice firm. We can learn. And who knows? Maybe we can find a way to advocate for these conversations to happen more often. Excitement coursed through Sophia as she felt the reins of her destiny slipping into her grasp. Elevating their dialogue from mere acknowledgement to active change marked a significant transformation not only in her life but in how she viewed adversity. As they forged a tentative connection amid confined spaces of the airplane, Sophia realized a critical turning point lay before her. The fight against judgment and misunderstanding wouldn't be easy, but the thought of potentially impacting both her narrative and Laura's filled her with drive. But before she could voice her next commitment, the engine roared to life, the sound vibrating through her thoughts. The momentum of their newfound understanding was precarious, yet invigorating. Would they rise together from this turbulence as champions of their journeys? Or would the allure of prior perceptions pull them back into reticent roles? The plane climbed high, but their resolve was just beginning its ascent. Sophia felt a buzz of adrenaline coursing through her, the aircraft shaking gently as it settled into its flight path. This was her moment, not just because of the claustrophobic reality of being confined in a metal tube high above the ground, but because she was at the cusp of something transformative. Her thoughts collided, a whirlwind of hope and apprehension mingling with a newfound clarity. She couldn't afford to let this opportunity slip away. She glanced at Laura, the flight attendant who had, moments ago, felt like an adversary. There was still a thread of tension in the air, but rather than perceptibly turning away from it, both women seemed to embrace the charge of uncertainty. We can't just pretend everything is fine after this, Sophia began, her tone growing assertive. I refuse to fall back into complacency. We have to find ways to advocate for ourselves, for each other. Laura's expression shifted, like sunlight breaking through clouds. You're right. If we want to change perceptions, we have to start by changing the conversation. But how do we do that? Sophia paused, weighing her words carefully. The burdens she felt were immense yet somehow lighter now that she wasn't carrying them alone. I work with patients who've often been marginalized or misunderstood. I could share those stories, how these judgments impact their care. Maybe we can leverage that to push for better accommodations and understanding. I like it, Laura replied, visibly warming to the idea. I've seen firsthand how unreasonable some customers can be because they expect us to cater to their whims and not understand the pressures we are under. Your patients could really frame it differently. Encouraged by the progress, Sophia dove deeper into her convictions. If we present real stories instead of statistics, maybe we can chip away at the walls of disdain or misunderstanding. People react to emotion. We shouldn't be afraid to share our experiences authentically. Laura shifted her stance, now entirely focused on Sophia. What you're proposing, it's not just discussions. It's a mission, a movement. We could create a platform maybe in our own little way, even inside this cabin. It might start with our crew meetings, but who knows where it could lead. The idea lit a fire inside Sophia, images flashing in her mind of how these candid exchanges could ripple beyond their immediate environment. This venture could serve as a model, illustrating the power of vulnerability and truth. But what if we face resistance? Laura asked, an edge of concern in her voice. People don't always respond well to being challenged. Sophia felt her chest tighten. The thought of conflict left an unsettling residue. We've already experienced that, haven't we? She replied, desperation forcing clarity into her tone. But the truth is, enduring discomfort leads to growth. We can't shy away this time. Laura nodded, the flicker of doubt in her eyes dimming. You've been through the ringer. If you can expose your own experiences, that's a powerful model of resilience. I admire that. Sophia's heart thudded, a mix of gratitude and determination. She was starting to realize that hidden within her experience was a reservoir of strength, waiting to be tapped into. But it was not just about her anymore. It was about Laura, about connecting their shared experiences to create a dialogue that could pave the way for change. Just then, the captain's voice cut through their conversation, announcing preparations for turbulence ahead. The call felt metaphorical, echoing the rocky path they were about to embark on. Sophia caught Laura's gaze, each understanding the symbolism of what lay ahead. The engine hummed under their feet, vibrations echoing possibilities. Sophia now stood at a crossroads, poised to embrace either uncertainty or fear. She took a deep breath and smiled, steeling her resolve. I'm ready if you are, she said, her voice steady. Laura grinned, nodding in agreement, but the next instant, the turbulence hit harder, rattling the compartment. Instinctively, they both gripped their armrests, hearts racing, minds racing faster. In the depths of the shaking cabin, a new kind of storm was gathering, one that would test their commitment not only to their cause but to each other. Would they manage to weather this impending turbulence? Or would it threaten to shake their fragile resolve apart? Sophia tightened her grip on the armrest as the aircraft jolted violently, the turbulence serving as a harsh reminder of the uncertainty they were about to navigate. Panic flooded the cabin, sweeping through the passengers, but it was accompanied by a steely determination that crystallized within her. This turbulence would not quell her resolve. Instead, it would fuel it. Hang in there, she called to Laura, catching a flicker of unease on her face. This is just the beginning. We knew it wouldn't be easy. Laura managed a nod, her grip on her own armrest echoing Sophia's resolve. As the aircraft bounced, echoes of steely conversations and dreams of change resonated between them, pairs of hearts pushing against an unseen tide. A spark of clarity ignited within Sophia, kindled by necessity. How ironic, she mused, that so much growth could arise amid chaos. They could either retreat into the shadows of complacency or step into the light of change. That was the exchange she was beginning to understand. It was the price of truly advocating for the vulnerable. Sophia turned her thoughts back to her patients, the stories she had yet to tell. Each narrative was a fragment of humanity that deserved a voice. Would they hear those stories? Would they listen? Doubt threatened to sneak in, but she countered it fiercely, affirming her purpose. Let us brainstorm while we have a moment, she said, lowering her voice slightly as the plane steadied. What do you think our initial steps should be once we land? Laura's brow furrowed as she focused. We could start small. Maybe during our breaks we could form a group, just the crew. Share our experiences, build our foundation there. The wheels in Sophia's mind began to turn. Creating an environment for dialogue felt imperative. That's perfect. Let us talk about ourselves, share those vulnerabilities. That's the first step to building trust. You think we can reach beyond just us? Laura queried with a trace of skepticism, eyeing the surrounding passengers, some still visibly shaken by the turbulence. "That's our goal," Sophia replied, thinly masking her own uncertainty. "An authentic connection starts within our crew. But if we align ourselves, we can influence a larger conversation. It's not about immediate change but incremental movements, real hope fostered by real stories." Laura's expression brightened with excitement, but just as quickly, it danced back to concern. "But what if they don't take us seriously? What if we challenge someone's beliefs and they lash out?" The air between them thickened with tension once more. Sophia was struck by a wave of doubt, a reminder of the very real fears that had cloaked her in silence for so many years. But amidst that, the weight of the possibilities began to outweigh the risks. They may not respond well, but our truths carry power. We can't allow fear to silence us. Our experiences hold wisdom that could open eyes. We owe that to ourselves and to those we represent. The announcement of smooth air comforted some passengers, and just like that, they hit another pocket of turbulence. In the moment of shifting uncertainty, Sophia's chest tightened again. Perhaps this was a foreshadowing, a precursor of the more significant challenges yet to come. "I'll do it if you do," Laura declared, once more emboldened. "We push the narrative. We create that connection." "Yes," Sophia replied, feeling the surge of possibility mixing with her trepidation. They were baring their souls, stepping onto a precipice together, the fear of falling only enhancing their resolve. "We take the plunge." In that moment of solidarity, a newfound strength coursed through Sophia. She was no longer just a healthcare provider. She was an advocate born from experience, ready to wield the stories of her patients as shields against misunderstanding. As the plane began its descent, the cabin filled with an anxious anticipation. At that moment, Sophia sensed a shift within herself and realized she was no longer bound by her fears. She had taken the first step toward transformation, not just for herself but for every voice that had gone unheard. But what awaited her beyond these cabin walls, a place where judgment loomed large and conversations were complex? Would their resolve withstand the turbulence of reality after their descent? Would they find the courage to confront the bigger storms waiting at their destination? The impending reality loomed, ripe with questions yet unanswered. As the plane landed with a lurch, the jarring impact sent waves of uncertainty coursing through Sophia's mind. She watched as passengers flocked to the exits, relief spilling over their faces. Yet, for Sophia, the journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Stepping off the aircraft, she was engulfed by the cacophony of an airport buzzing with activity. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the anticipation and anxiety that danced within. The bustling crowd felt like an unfamiliar sea, one she needed to navigate with both caution and intention. "Are you ready?" Laura asked, her voice barely piercing through the noise. Sophia turned to see her friend, eyes wide with a mix of eagerness and trepidation. "Ready as I'll ever be," Sophia replied, forcing a smile that barely masked the unease stirring inside her. Every step towards their destination felt monumental, a leap into uncharted territory where she would need to assert herself, a far cry from the comfort of the aircraft. With an address to their lukewarm welcome, the crew gathered for a debriefing session. This was where her resolve would be tested, and where the first threads of connection could be woven among healthcare workers she barely knew. As they settled into a cramped conference room, Sophia felt a clenching in her stomach. This was the moment she had envisioned countless times. Would they be receptive to her ideas? Would they even care? Laura nudged her gently. "You've got this." Sophia cleared her throat, the sound echoing against the stark walls. "Thank you all for being here. I know we just landed, but these discussions can't wait. We all know the struggles of our patients. We must share our stories to harness our collective strength." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. The atmosphere was one of hesitance and uncertainty. The air hung thick with skepticism, and it made Sophia's pulse quicken. "Why should we?" A voice came from the back, laced with challenge. A taller woman with sharp features crossed her arms, surveying Sophia like she was an intruder. "We do our jobs. What's sharing going to change?" Sophia's heart sank, but she wouldn't let it deter her. "Our stories matter." They are the truths underlining our daily grind. They're what make us empathetic healthcare providers. If we don't speak out, we risk losing the very essence of care. Isn't that worth exploring? Silence blanketed the room, a testament to the internal struggle within each member of the crew. The woman seemed to relent, uncrossing her arms, though the skepticism was still glaring in her eyes. Slowly, one by one, people began to share tentatively at first, but eventually, a torrent of narratives spilled forth, raw and real. Each story bound them a little tighter, and Sophia felt the cracks in her own walls narrow as their vulnerabilities intertwined. With every voice added to the chorus of shared experience, Sophia felt lighter. Yet, there lingered the darker echoes of resistance. While they were building a nascent community, formidable obstacles still loomed ahead: long-held prejudices, individual fears, and the stark reality of their working environment. Laura turned to Sophia mid-conversation, her expression illuminated by newfound determination. "We're onto something here, aren't we?" "Yes," Sophia replied, her heart racing with the thrill of this revelation. "But we must keep pushing. There are those who will oppose change. We have to be ready to face them. Our journey wouldn't be complete if we glossed over those challenges." The weight of potential confrontations loomed ahead, but so did the invigorating prospect of transformation. That night, in the quiet of their shared hotel room, Sophia replayed their discussions in her mind. The gravity of their purpose resonated deep within her, a flicker of hope, stoked by shared resolve. As she drifted off to sleep, she pondered the ensuing confrontations awaiting them in a world resistant to change. Would they have the strength to confront harsh realities and embrace the unpredictability that change demanded? Could their newfound solidarity withstand the test of time? What lay in store for Sophia and her companions once the repercussions of their audacity began to unravel in the days to come? Sophia awoke to the sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains, illuminating the room with a warmth that felt both inviting and daunting. Despite a few hours of sleep, she felt a relentless pull of anxiety intertwined with anticipation. Today would be critical. Their morning debriefing was a chance to pursue further authenticity within the team. If they were to drive change, the approach had to be strategic. As she dressed, she contemplated the faces of her colleagues from the previous day, each one marked by a story that could ignite change. But change would not be delivered on a silver platter. It would demand persistence. She needed to think beyond motivation and deal with the tangible realities that lay ahead. Today, she would put not just her thoughts but also her strategic framework into practice. In a conference room, she took a deep breath as she grasped the edges of the podium, steadying herself. An air of wariness filled the space as the crew assembled again, still grappling with what had unfolded the day before. "Good morning, everyone." The familiarity of her voice settled uneasily in the room. She began outlining her vision, highlighting an innovative way to facilitate their discussions. "Yesterday was a start, but today, I want us to identify practical solutions rooted in our collective narratives. Change demands structure." A handful of skeptical heads nodded, yet there remained that shadow of doubt from the woman in the back, whose name Sophia hadn't yet learned. The way she scrutinized Sophia was a stark reminder of the uphill battle they faced. Would people like her deem Sophia's insights relevant enough to engage with? "How do we integrate your so-called stories into our work routine? We have schedules to follow and policies to adhere to," the woman punctuated, her tone sharper than before. That Sophia's heart quickened, sensing the challenge mount again. But retaliating with defensiveness would lead nowhere. Instead, she chose a different route. "Stories humanize our work. They're the very essence we need to reclaim in our roles. Let us begin with what we love about our jobs. Those moments can illuminate how we approach patient care." Silence enveloped the room momentarily, creating a crack in the tension. Words mattered. To recount what touched them in their day-to-day could catalyze transformation. A hushed voice broke through, a man on the team who rarely contributed. "I like the way we make people feel heard. That matters, doesn't it?" Sophia felt a surge of relief. "Exactly. But let us discuss how we can take that a step further. How can we shape that feeling into actionable practices that transform our approach? It's not an either-or situation. It's about both our stories and how we integrate them into protocols. Engagement sparked slowly as people tentatively shared experiences, revealing fragments of passion that had once seemed buried. Sophia noted with a stirring sense of achievement that as discussions deepened, barriers began to break down. She had turned hesitation into a platform for dialogue. Yet, even amidst the growing collaboration, familiar unease persisted. Could this newfound enthusiasm withstand criticism from the higher-ups, or even from their peers who were reluctant to adapt? As the room held its breath momentarily, Sophia felt the need to solidify the momentum she glimpsed. Let us commit to implementing a project based on our shared ideals, fully aware that facing resistance is a given. Who here is ready to help create change? Hands began to rise, hesitance replaced by an eagerness to engage. Yet, from the back, that one doubtful woman remained. Her eyes were hardened as if weighing each hopeful gesture against a reality Sophia couldn't yet fathom. The weight of challenge hung thicker, but beneath the uncertainty pulsed an echo of resolve. Would they back down when the going got tough? As they ventured deeper into brainstorming tactics, Sophia felt the lines of her own determination blur against the daunting reality of creating actionable change. The day was still ahead of them, and immense challenges loomed in their path. Would the seemingly delicate threads of connection hold in the face of impending scrutiny? Each pulse of energy could spark transformation, or it could unravel once doubts circled back. The conference room buzzed with an energy that both invigorated and terrified Sophia. As colleagues shared their experiences, she monitored their reactions, apprehension flickering behind eyes that were once clouded by disbelief. She realized that while they were inching toward connection, there remained an undeniable skepticism that clung to the atmosphere like shadows at dusk. After a few more contributions, Sophia decided to shift the momentum further. All right, let us break into small groups. I want each group to take one story we just discussed and create a proposal for our next team project. Focus on actionable steps. What can we implement immediately to highlight that value of making our patients feel heard? She watched as the team exchanged glances, some nodding while others hesitated. Was this the moment when they would embrace the challenge, or would they retreat back into their shells? The doubt from the woman in the back continued to prickle at her mind that as the groups formed, Sophia moved closer to the doubtful woman, wanting to foster a conversation that could bridge any lingering divides. Can we talk about your concerns? She asked gently. The woman appeared caught off guard but defined her tone with firmness. Why should I invest in stories when we have protocols and policies to follow? We can't just do what feels good without balancing it with what is practically required. The challenge in her tone was unmistakable, a wall that Sophia now sought to gradually dismantle. Sophia took a moment, allowing the weight of accountability to settle between them. You're absolutely right. We can't abandon structure. But incorporating stories doesn't mean we ignore procedure. Rather, it's about enhancing the systems we have. It's a dual approach. The woman continued to scrutinize her, and the tension thickened. Yet Sophia sensed the flicker of curiosity beneath her scrutiny. Was it possible her words had penetrated the armor? I want us to succeed, Sophia pressed, her voice steady despite the nerves trying to betray her confidence. I need you to believe that stories can be the foundation of this success. What if we structured our protocols with these narratives woven into them? They could become instructional, guiding the way we interact with patients. The doubtful woman considered this, her brow furrowing as she contemplated the implications of Sophia's proposition. This moment swirled between tension and potential, and time felt suspended. Just then, the sound of laughter from an adjacent group punctured the heavy air, pulling Sophia's attention. A few of her colleagues had begun to engage and share light-hearted moments while still concentrating on their task. This juxtaposition compelled a fresh, determined resolve in Sophia. There was power in vulnerability, but there was also strength in collective joy. As the debriefing progressed, Sophia facilitated discussion among the teams, and the spirit in the room shifted. They began integrating feedback into their proposals, igniting creativity and problem-solving skills that had lay dormant. Every laugh shared was a thread used to weave the growing tapestry of their collaboration. But the inner voice of doubt didn't fully disappear. It lingered on the outskirts of her mind. What would happen when the higher-ups reviewed their proposals? Would they see the value in blending stories and structure? Or would they mock such an idealistic approach, shattering the fragile connections Sophia had cultivated? When the groups reassembled to share their ideas, the room filled with an undercurrent of excitement. Ideas bounced off walls, though the woman continued to observe with a calculating gaze. Feeling her pulse quicken, Sophia stepped back to the front of the room. Let us not lose sight of what we've accomplished. But remember, we need to prepare for feedback potentially harsh. I want us to embrace any critique as an opportunity to grow. The weight of her own words pressed down on her. Was she confident enough to embrace feedback herself? At that moment, Sophia realized she was standing at the intersection of two roads, one leading toward potential failure and the other toward unprecedented change. Each step forward could either cement her place or invite scrutiny. The challenge to her conviction would soon come as the clock ticked away. The air thickened with anticipation and uncertainty. The time had come for her to face the reality of her ambitions. Would they view her vision as a gateway to growth or as a flawed ideal? And amidst these swirling thoughts, a sense of empowerment flickered within. It was no longer about convincing others alone. It was about strengthening her own resolve to see this through, whatever the cost. The moment had arrived for her to confront her own fears. With that reflection in mind, she braced herself for the moment of scrutiny. Would she thrive or falter when the higher-ups arrived to weigh in on their collaborative efforts? Sophia stood at the front of the conference room, the murmurs of anticipation wrapping around her like a heavy cloak. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, magnifying every heartbeat and thought. The clock's relentless ticking seemed to echo, reminding her that the time to face scrutiny was imminent. As the room filled with her colleagues, she caught sight of the doubtful woman, who had yet to soften her critical gaze. A fire ignited within Sophia. She was no longer merely a leader trying to persuade. She was fighting for an idea she believed could transform her team, and with that conviction surged a rush of determination. The higher-ups entered the room, shifting the atmosphere instantly. Their presence loomed as if casting shadows over her newfound resolve. Sophia squared her shoulders, determined to project the confidence she felt inside, even if uncertainty lingered like a distant echo. One of the senior executives, a woman named Karen with years of experience etched into her features, smiled welcomingly but with a hint of skepticism. Welcome, everyone. I'm eager to see how you've integrated our core values into your proposals. Let us start with the first group. As each team presented their proposals, Sophia felt a mixture of pride and anxiety bubble within her. Ideas flowed, narratives were shared, and even the laughter from earlier hung in the air like applause for their collective effort. Yet each time the doubtful woman spoke, her tone held an undercurrent of caution. Sophia reminded herself of her aim. This wasn't just a presentation. It was a challenge, a possibility for change. Finally, it was time for Sophia's group to present. Her heart raced as she stood before the assembly, her colleagues' faces blurring with intense scrutiny. She took a deep breath, centering herself. We believe that integrating patient narratives into our protocols not only personalizes care, but also enhances our overall service quality. Stories have the power to connect, allowing us to understand our patients beyond symptoms. As she spoke, she felt a trembling mix of excitement and fear, nurturing her drive. The higher-ups listened intently. Sophia dared to meet their gaze, searching for signs of approval or doubt. But the moment of confrontation arrived like an unforeseen storm. Karen tilted her head, her tone measured but sharp. Sophia, how do you propose we balance this approach with our need for efficiency? After all, we work in a high-stakes environment where time is as crucial as care. It was a legitimate question, and the silence that followed filled the room as others awaited her response. This was the clash of her ideals against the established norms of their profession. Sophia's mind raced, the weight of the entire team's efforts resting on her next words. We can establish a streamlined process to incorporate these narratives into our patient assessments. She began, the words flowing despite the knot forming within her chest. By utilizing technology and dedicated staff to document stories, we can create a repository that enhances our protocols without sacrificing efficiency. The room held its breath, and in that moment, she felt the glimmer of clarity among her swirling doubts. This was more than a proposal. It was the seed of her evolution, a merging of passion with practicality. Just as she thought she had found her footing, the doubtful woman interjected, "But what if this approach dilutes our focus on quantifiable outcomes? We mustn't lose sight of metrics that define our success." Each word from her felt like an arrow aimed directly at Sophia's heart. She had anticipated resistance from her, but the mounting pressure was palpable. It was time to confront not only the objections from her colleagues but the doubts within herself. How can we measure empathy? Sophia challenged gently, her heart pounding with vulnerability. We can quantify patient satisfaction scores, but what about the narratives that underpin those experiences? Don't we owe it to our patients and ourselves to strive for understanding and connection? The room seemed to pulse with tension, her colleagues leaning in as if drawn by the raw honesty in her words. Would this challenge solidify her position or unravel her efforts? As a murmur of agreement rose, but still accompanied by hesitation, Sophia recognized this pivotal moment as a test of her emerging leadership. She would have to stand firm, not just for herself but for those who infused their stories into team dynamics. But as the conversation continued, she felt a creeping dread and unsettling realization that their proposals might not get the recognition they deserved, and her passion, while powerful, might not sway those entrenched in traditional metrics. The dialogue progressed into the terrain of compromise, but Sophia's resolve had solidified, and with it came a newfound sense of purpose. Still, doubts simmered beneath the surface. Would she be able to galvanize her team, or would she fall short when it mattered most? As the meeting drew to a close, her thoughts spiraled through possibilities: success, failure, or transformation. Could she navigate this labyrinthine path to redefine expectations? And amid these thoughts, a voice echoed in her mind. It was time to fight for what she truly believed in, for her future and the future of the team. But who else would stand by her side when the moment came to initiate the real change? Sophia's challenge was clear. She had to rally not just her vision but her team. But would they respond to her call, or would skepticism still reign? The next chapter awaited, filled with choices that would determine her growth. In the weeks that followed the tumultuous events on the flight, Sophia transformed into a force of unwavering determination. What began as a painful confrontation with a flight attendant had ignited a passion within her, a conviction that she was meant to advocate for change in healthcare. The internal battle she faced evolved into a crusade, and each day she embraced new challenges with a fresh perspective. Sophia's confidence grew, bolstered by the support of her colleagues who had begun to rally around her vision. The skeptical woman from the conference room, now recognized as Emma, slowly became a vital ally. Their rocky start transformed into respectful collaboration as they worked together to amalgamate patient narratives with pragmatic strategies. One morning, as they huddled in a conference room, Sophia smashed through her lingering doubts. "We need to establish a formal pilot program," she declared, her voice steady. "We can gather patient stories through structured interviews and analyze how they coincide with care practices. This could revolutionize the way we approach healthcare delivery." The energy in the room buzzed. Her idea resonated with the group, integrating their identities as caregivers into a cohesive mission. As they refined their plans, Sophia meticulously outlined actionable objectives, ensuring they blended compassion with efficiency. It was exhilarating yet daunting. Our industry can be resistant to change, but with each meeting, their resolve solidified. They incorporated timelines, responsibilities, and benchmarks that would hold them accountable, focusing on measurable impact. The day of their pilot program launch felt monumental. As she prepared to present to hospital administration, a mix of anticipation and anxiety danced in her chest. This was not just about her. It was also about every patient whose voice had been dimmed by the system. The team gathered, their spirits high yet nervous as they walked into the conference room, filled with decision-makers who would determine the fate of their initiative. "Today, we showcase the strength of our collective stories," she began, addressing the room with unmistakable poise. We've recognized that empathy should be measured alongside metrics, and we believe that integrating patient experiences will improve outcomes. They presented their inclusive approach, sharing personal accounts from patients alongside quantitative results, demonstrating that empathy directly correlates to enhanced satisfaction and compliance. The administration listened, visibly intrigued by the innovative blend. Lively conversations ignited across the room as they debated the potential impacts of their proposal, validating the struggles their patients face daily. Afterward, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The lead administrator approached Sophia, a glimmer of intrigue in her eyes. This is a fresh perspective, she mused. Empowering providers to connect with patients on a deeper level could indeed redefine how we deliver care. When the decision came to approve their pilot program, Sophia felt herself fill with both relief and triumph. They had turned the skepticism into excitement, climbing over the barriers of doubt, and their efforts had transformed into institutional recognition. Months later, as the team analyzed feedback from the pilot, Sophia received an unexpected acknowledgement from hospital leadership. She was nominated for the Innovator of the Year award, celebrating her contribution to improving patient care. Her heart soared. This achievement wasn't just her victory, it was theirs, a testament to their collaborative effort. At the awards ceremony, as she spoke before an audience filled with her peers, emotions welled within her. "This award is not just for me," she said, voice clear and strong. "It celebrates a collective shift towards empathy in healthcare. We must embrace our vulnerabilities to make a difference. Let us continue to fight for our patients." The applause that followed was not just a response to her words. It echoed the resonating urgency for change that they had sparked together. Now Sophia stood with solid confidence. She had conquered her initial fears and emerged as a recognized advocate for change. What mattered more, however, was how she had grown into someone who could inspire others to reclaim their narratives, catalyzing a movement where empathy was integral to the web of care. Reflecting on her journey, Sophia felt a deep satisfaction coursing through her. She had transformed her pain into purpose, not merely for herself but as a protector for her patients and their stories. Each step forward stitched together a tapestry of resilience, illuminating the path ahead. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voices matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.